Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of Dave and Andy's Honest About Life. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andy. How are you?
I'm fine. Forgive my voice. Doing a lot of cheering for my daughter this weekend. She had a rowing competition, and
Nobody can criticize you for that, buddy. I
yeah,
know I used to get a lot of criticism because I was so loud. And I think I even got kicked out once or twice out of, just because I was too loud. Um,
we can we
but
can
you
be
can't,
loud.
you can't, how can you criticize, you're cheering for your daughter for crying
Yeah,
out loud.
as long as it's supportive and it's not super
Right.
negative.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So forgive me. I hope I don't sound too bad. So,
You sound all right.
Dad, let's do it. We don't have a ton of time, but let's do a couple of where were you wins. So where were you when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, April 4th, 1968? Where were you? What were you doing?
I remember that I think I was going to a piano lesson. I love to play piano, and I think I was going to piano lesson when I heard that, and it was again something where it's in your mind, you'll never forget it. It was just like you couldn't believe that happened, and yeah, the news was dominated by that for so long, and it was such a tragedy um, that uh,
It says the little note about him is he was fatally shot by James Earl Ray as the civil rights icon stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel. A tragedy that sparked race riots nationwide. King's influence in his words and actions touched uh, not only the nation but the world, and obviously they continue to resonate today. So it was before I was born, and I wonder, that must have been a really big day in your history.
yeah, it was, and as I said, it dominated news for a while, and well, it should have. And I think, as a teenager, I was 14. Um, it it kind of resonated with me because I thought that I was starting to understand the world, but I really, when that happened, I didn't understand the world. Um, you started to realize how bad things were at that point, and you were praying that things would get better. That something good would come from such tragedy. Um, and I kind of think it has. I believe that voices have become a little louder, and maybe we're learning from that. I hope.
I hope you're right too. There's been a lot of violence, and we don't have to talk about that. We don't need this session to be, um, this sort of focus on all the gun violence. And obviously, at some point, we could talk about that too. But
Yeah.
there's an awful lot of it. Let's let's talk about another where you win. We landed on the moon. So this is just about a year later after Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. About a year later, July 20th, 1969, President Kennedy's goal of a manned lunar landing before 1970 was realized. Um, where were you? Do you remember when we landed on the moon?
I know exactly where it was. We were gathered around our TV set out at our cabin, Big Marine Lake. My mom and dad had a small cabin, and all of us were gathered around the TV. It was in the middle of summer, July, and we got to see that. It was fascinating. That's another moment in life where you can't forget it. It's pretty amazing when we saw that, and the pictures and the voices of people, amazed at the fact that we were walking around on the moon. You look outside the window and you see this bright thing in the sky, and you realize somebody's actually walking around on that. That's pretty cool.
It was reason to be quite proud, I imagine, of the human race, of our nation.
Yeah, our nation got a big boost from that. I really do believe, as far as the space program went, that NASA really, took a step forward there, and that was a big moment in President Kennedy's presidency. Um, that became such a big deal, and I'm glad it did, because I think it helped in our space race.
Do you think that it will have, it probably won't have an equally large impact on us all individually and as a group collectively, but do you think it'll have a big impact? I know they're talking about in the next year or two doing the same thing and landing back on the moon. You think that'll be an opportunity for us to come together again and be proud?
I hope so. I hope that we can be proud of that type of thing, because it is a step forward. And I think we have to, we're going to be going further than the moon, and stepping foot, someday we'll step foot on Mars. We've had many probes go to Mars already. But I hope it is a kind of a proud moment for this country, and hopefully it does kind of unite everyone in one goal, and that's to explore space.
I agree. I think it will have that kind of impact. Let's just hope it's believable with all this AI. I know that you and I, we dabble a little bit in our conversations about AI, politics, religion, that sort of thing. But with AI being out there, will it be believable? Because I know there's not, I know there's a couple of people in the world that don't believe we actually landed on the moon the first time.
I know. And that is an interesting topic, is the fact, as we've been talking about AI in the past, how it can mimic life. I mean, exactly. So, there are a lot of things that are going to be hard to believe as time goes on, the advances that we're making. But science fiction becoming science fact is something that I live by all the time. Science fiction does become science fact.
Well, it's hard to believe that we're through yet another session together. So I look forward to the next time, Dad. Thank you again. Love you.
Love you so much, Andy. These are fun for sure.
They are fun. I cherish them greatly. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, Dad.
Thank you, buddy. Bye.